Welcome to the Bonfire Chat. I'm Jace, and this is a place for real stories, honest conversations, and the advice we wish someone had given us sooner. So pull up a chair and let's talk. When was the last time you told someone that you weren't okay? And I mean, I'm talking about really told them that you weren't doing okay. Not the whole when they ask you the question, how are you doing? You say, I'm fine, or I'm just tired, or I'm just stressed, or you say, I'm good. I'm talking about you are looking at the person that you trust the most in this world. You look them dead straight in the eye and you say with all seriousness that you're not okay, that you need help, that you're terrified or you're hurt. Or even just being honest and saying that you don't know what you're doing. I want you to remember when you last said that to someone. And if you're a man listening to this right now, this is going to be more of the male perspective. Because I'm not a female, if I'm being completely honest. So if I'm trying to kind of help men out in a sense, by saying this, it is okay as a man to feel your feelings. It is okay for you to cry. It is okay for you to not know what is going on. You don't always have to have this machismo attitude. Somewhere along the way, we learned that being emotional was something to be ashamed of. That you were supposed to toughen up. You ever heard the phrase man up? Or boys don't cry, men don't cry? How many times have you been told to get over it? And that can go both ways too. It's not just a male thing. And you don't realize it, but every time someone says those things to you, it hurts. It really does hurt you. Because it is telling you to reject what you're actually feeling on the inside. And sometimes a lot of the people that are saying that, they were taught that too when they were growing up. And we start to believe that being a man means being unaffected, right? Like, I can take everything the world takes at me and I don't care. And some of you may have that, and that's fine, okay? But at some point, you got to bring your walls down. Sometimes you have to be vulnerable, and that is scary in both genders. It is terrifying. You start to see that vulnerability as a weakness, and it's not. In fact, sometimes we must be vulnerable. Otherwise, we grow bitter. We grow angrier. You're not allowed to empty the jar that's inside of you. It's going to overflow and eventually break. That's when we usually have the crash out moments. There's so much in the jar, you can't handle it anymore. And so we have to start believing that asking for help doesn't mean failure. We have to start believing, well, I say we, right? This is a lesson that I have to learn as well a while back, but it is okay to ask for help. It is okay to be strong, yet still be vulnerable. It is okay for you to be a man, in this sense, and still cry. It doesn't mean that you're a woman. It doesn't mean that you're weak or anything like that. In fact, showing vulnerability and emotion, when, done correctly, I should say, can show really good masculinity. Right? We've heard the term toxic masculinity, and it's been used quite a lot within good reason too. A lot of younger men are growing up right now in the age of social media and trash TV and seeing what all of these men are doing, right? They're going around abusing other people, their friends, abusing their partners, calling people that show slight emotions people that are tapping in to their femininity, they're abusing them. And that's not okay. It is never okay. You have to, and I really mean this, you have to understand that toxic masculinity in most cases is a mental illness. Right? Now, let's talk about this. So, sometimes anger is the only emotion men were given permission to have. If you go and watch sort of like these old comedy shows, I'm talking about pre-80s, like 50s, 60s, 70s television shows, and you look at the male character, you start to see how misogynistic these male characters can be. Now, they try to pass it off as a comedic expression, but it was a projection of its time, right? Men treated women like an object. Now, I'm generalizing hardcore. Now, a lot of what I'm going to say is going to be huge generalization. So if you don't feel like that you fit into this category, that's great. If you do feel like you're being fit into this category and you feel like you're taking it personal, I'm not attacking you. What I really want you to do is I want you to reflect on how you treat others, how you treat other males, how you treat other females, even how you treat your pets can be a tell sign, right? So one thing I want to talk about is that the anger that men have. Raise your hand if you've heard of this male loneliness epidemic. Yeah, I've heard it too. And I've seen the people that are promoting this kind of mentality, this idea, right? And I personally think it's all bullshit. I do. I think it's awful. These are people who are not reflecting on who they are as individuals. They are refusing to look into the mirror, look directly into their eyes, and seeing how can I improve myself as a person. These people who are promoting and have adopted this idea, and I say the idea in quotes, these people are sad. They're depressed. And they're manifesting all of that negative energy and projecting it onto other people. They're blaming it on women. They're out here saying, oh, it's not my fault that I am single. It's because all of the women are all the same. They don't appreciate blah, 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 all this stuff. They don't appreciate, my conservative views or my, whatever views that you may have politically. They don't like my lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. It's their fault. It's not my fault. What I like to hang out with my friends 24/7 and get abhorrently drunk and then come home. And if there's not dinner, then I'm going to do terrible things. But, all of this stuff, they're not looking in a mirror and they're not reflecting on who they are. And so they turn all of that negative emotion and they project it outwards onto other people. You have all of these male influencers out here doing interviews and rage baiting people and debating people on, this male loneliness epidemic, this idea that men are superior. Why do women get a international holiday? What about the males? All of this, it's ridiculous. It's sad. And if you are with someone that has that kind of mentality, I really want you to think about it. I really want you to kind of reflect, look at yourself in the mirror, kind of have a discussion with them and see where this is all coming from. A lot of the times it's because they hate themselves and they can't accept that fact. They can't. So anger isn't only an emotion that they have permission to have. And that's not correct. Men, it is okay for you to cry. It is okay for you to feel sadness, to feel anger, to feel frustration, annoyance. It is okay for you to cry. It is okay for you to crash out, if done in a healthy and safe manner, I should say. Okay? Don't crash out on other people. Find a space where you can be by yourself and then kind of let loose a little bit. Steer away from self harm or anything like that. So you can be someone's protector and still need someone to protect you sometimes. I am not perfect. I cannot always have the energy to protect the ones that I love every single day. I need to be protected. In men, that's okay to accept. It's okay to adopt. And it's okay to carry through. It's tiring. Existence can be tiring. Going to work every single day and then coming home to cook dinner and then to relax for an hour or two before going to bed and then doing the same thing day after day after day after day. It is an exhausting feat. And sometimes you can't protect the ones that you love because you lack the energy to do so. And it's okay to accept that. That is where you rely on the people who love you. It is okay to seek their help. It is okay to ask for assistance. If you have a wife, it is okay to lean on them. I guarantee you they're as strong as you are, if not more. It is okay to rely on your parents. It is okay to rely on your friends. It is okay to rely on your mentors. You can't protect them all the time. But the people around you, they can step in and help you through it all. You don't always have to be their protector. Just most of the time be their protector. Help them out whenever they need it. But they can also help you out whenever you need it too. And that leads to you being very vulnerable with yourself. Being vulnerable doesn't make you less of a man. No. Being vulnerable doesn't mean that you're a feminine person. You're a sissy, is what people say. Being vulnerable doesn't mean that you're weak, you're a sissy, that you lack conviction, you lack drive, you lack purpose, or any of these things like that. It doesn't make you less of a man. It actually makes you more of a man, if you really consider it. How so, you may ask? Well, let's say that you've had a very, very bad day of work. You come home, you're very angry and frustrated, and you got a family waiting for you at home. You get home and you have one or two choices to make. One, you can not lead, but you can push down all of that anger and frustration deep down into the pit of your stomach, walk in through the door, and then kind of gamble your way through the rest of your day. Any small thing that happens during your time of dinner and rest with your family, anything that can trigger a reaction, an emotional reaction out of you, can most likely lead to disaster. Alcoholism, drug abuse, domestic abuse, child abuse. Containing it all within yourself without any sense of release, emotional release, you're basically gambling this kind of way. I mean, even suicidal tendencies arise from this. You feel like you're stuck. and there's no way out. Or number two, you can walk in through the door, you can greet your family, you can put your stuff down, you can change into your comfiest clothes, talk to your partner at the kitchen table, and let them know how you're really feeling. If your partner loves you, and I mean love you, they will sit down and listen to you. You can ask for advice, you can ask for solutions, or you can ask for them to just listen to you. Any of those options will help you lead a healthier, long-lasting life filled with love, filled with emotional release, filled with a sense of peace and a burden lifted off of your shoulders. I guarantee you, option two is a lot sweeter to taste. Option one leads nothing but disaster. So, men, be vulnerable with your partner, be vulnerable with your family, be vulnerable with your friends. I know I'm in a friend group right now, and I don't have a hard time sharing how I feel when the context is right. But sometimes they don't really like to talk about how they feel. Unless they're ranting about something. Then they really let you know how they feel. But I really want you to think about as you listen to this, what emotion were you taught you weren't allowed to feel? Odds are, most of the time, it's feeling sad. Men were taught at a very young age, from toxic men, I should say, that you shouldn't cry. Men don't cry. I know one thing is, um, I was I wasn't taught this necessarily, but I know my friends were growing up. Whenever we had picture day at school, we would go. I would dress up nicely. I'd go and sit down. And they say smile, and I would smile, even though growing up around my teenage years, I didn't really like how I smiled. Even when I was in adulthood, I didn't like how I smiled. But I met someone that did love my smile, so I smiled more. Made me feel comfortable. But what I noticed around me was that there were other boys that weren't smiling. They had a stone cold serious face. And I would go up to them and I would ask, I'm like, why didn't you smile? They say, smile when they say cheese. Why didn't you smile? And they would respond by saying, my dad told me that we should never smile in a picture. That men don't smile in pictures. They're supposed to be serious. And so it made me think when I was that young, should I be smiling in pictures? Should I not be smiling in pictures? Does that make me less of a man if I smile? Or do I become more of a man if I don't smile? And when you're at an impressionable age and you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing, you kind of follow orders and do so. But as I got older, I've learned that that is a form of toxic masculinity. That men shouldn't smile in pictures. Men are not allowed to cry, not allowed to feel anything. And that's sad. It is a sad, sad thing to go through. And it makes you think how much people are carrying things they're never taught how to put down, right? How does someone go from a life of toxic masculinity to a life of healthy masculinity? How do I go from you're not allowed to smile in pictures to I can smile in any picture that I want? How do you go from pushing down all of your feelings, frustrations, and negative energy, pushing it down and never seeing the light of day, only waiting for it to crash, to how do I become vulnerable? Allowing myself to release all of the negative emotions that are inside of me. And it isn't, it's not an easy feat, I will say. It's more difficult as they get older, right? To kind of adjust a way of life that you've lived for a very long time. And ladies, if you have a person in your life that is, you can see that they are like projecting toxic masculinity, or you starting to see the transition from toxic masculinity to healthy masculinity, all I ask you is that you support them through the process. Listen to them. Don't make them feel bad for having them rant about their feelings and their sadness and angers and stuff like that. Support them through it. Now, I'm saying that very broadly. And that's because there's a lot of topics that go into releasing negative emotions, right? Topics like current events and politics and divisive conversation, we'll say. And I would, all I ask is that you use your better judgment when it comes to situations like that. Don't just blindly support. Sometimes it's better to put them back in their place. If they say something that's completely out of line and you hear that, you got to correct them. Now, a couple of things can happen from that. One could be they fight back and argue back, and then makes them more angry, emotional. Or two, they kind of are taken back by your pushback and are more willing to listen. And a lot of things can happen in between those two situations as well. I'm just picking two examples. Use your better judgment, read the room, and decide from there on what you plan on doing. Because you can't allow the behavior, the poor behavior to continue. You can't allow that. You got to put your foot down. In men, you need to listen too. You need to listen when you are in the wrong, and you got to accept that you are wrong. You're not right all the time. No gender is right all the time. But you need to learn, male, and I'm speaking to the men, you need to learn to accept and acknowledge when you're wrong. You have to accept it. You have to accept when you are wrong. And I say that multiple times because a lot of you, especially in that male loneliness epidemic mindset, you refuse, and I mean refuse, to admit that you are wrong. You refuse to admit that you're in the wrong. You refuse to admit that your behavior is wrong. You refuse to admit that your actions are wrong, that your viewpoints are wrong, that your opinions are wrong, and blah, 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 all of this. You need to acknowledge that you are not right. You need to acknowledge that you are wrong. That is a fact. A stone cold fact. You're not right. You're wrong. You shouldn't be treating women like that. You shouldn't be treating them like they're objects. You shouldn't be angry at them because they don't like you. It's not their fault. It's obviously got to be something with you or who you're trying to attract. Admit that you're wrong is the first step to a healthy masculinity mindset. Admitting that you're not perfect, that you're not superior, quote unquote, to the other gender, is the correct first step to a healthy mindset. And listen, I'm saying all of this because I don't want you to think that you have to tell everyone your problems. I'm not saying that you need to unload all that you are feeling, all the problems that you've had from childhood onwards. I'm not saying any of that. Unless you want to do that, then go ahead. Spend some time with your partner, your friend, your family, whoever it may be. Get together and kind of just talk. Have a healthy conversation. An open conversation, I should say. Have that with them. You don't have to tell them all your problems, but you need to have someone to tell you the truth. Ladies, that's what I'm talking about. You need to be truthful with your partner. But be truthful with yourself too. Make sure that you are in the right as well. That you were wronged. Family members, you got to make sure that we got to accept that you might have been a cause in this. Parents, reflect on your time as a parent. The question is, where did I go wrong raising you? I've heard that so many times in media and watching TV and stuff like that. Where did I go wrong? You have to reflect, where did that behavior come from? Every behavior is learned somewhere. It could be learned from parents. It could be learned from social media, from TikTok. I know a lot of learned behavior currently is from the environment in which they live in and from TikTok. I guarantee, or Instagram Reels or social media or whatever. Like, I guarantee you that. You're starting to see a rise. This trend of the red pill, blah, 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 all this stuff politically, the male loneliness epidemic, that's all learned through social media, through word of ear. It's learned behavior. You need to be truthful with yourself and be truthful to the partner that you love, to your family member that you love, to your friend that you love and care for. You have to be truthful. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be in a safe environment in order to have this be more effective. Okay. Now, I want you to do me one thing. Whoever's listening right now, I want you to do me one thing, okay? I want you to get rid of the phrase "man up" when someone is asking for advice. Man up is not an appropriate answer when someone's going through a rough time. Man up is not an appropriate response when someone is seeking help and seeking advice. Man up is not it. It is not the right answer. Instead, ask either one of these questions. What can I do for you? How can I help you? I'm here for you if you need anything. Or you can be, let's hang out. Let's go for a drive. Let me give you a distraction for just a bit. And then let's talk. This will change a person, male or female. It doesn't matter. Although I'm speaking more from the male perspective, this can change a person. An ounce of care can go a long way. But an ounce of truth can make it go longer. Now, men, I'm speaking to you directly here. You need to let go of your emotions in a healthy way. You need to find a way in which you can release negative emotions from within in a healthy manner that doesn't require you to be physically violent or physically at all. You need to find a way. Every person is different, and I can't give you a method in which that is universal. You need to find a way to kind of release all of those negative emotions. And some of you may already have one. You may already have this release. That's good. Most of you probably don't have anything. Your release is probably in the form of toxic masculinity. Going online and saying nonsense or speaking down to people, blah, 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 all this other things. That's not healthy. That's toxic. Learn. Be open. Listen. And I guarantee you, you're going to live a healthier lifestyle. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to be vulnerable with yourself. And you have to be truthful with yourself. That is what it means to be healthy masculine. Get rid of your toxic side. It's not worth it. It only leads to sadness and loneliness and anger and frustration. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that at all. So, today, what I really want you to do is I want you to ask yourself, how have I been living a toxic, masculine life? If I have been living that kind of life, what can I do to get rid of the toxicity and strive for healthy? I want you to really think about that. And if you have been listening and you are in that healthy mindset, then help the people around you, the friends that you interact with, the family members that you interact with. If you see someone that you love and care for exhibit toxic traits, I really want you to hear them out and see if you can help them. Helping each other out will lead to a much better world. Can you imagine what the world would be like if everyone had a healthy mindset? Emotionally. God, what a world that would be. Anyways, that's all I really wanted to talk about today in this episode. I really appreciate you being here and listening. And I want you to leave today with the question of, what can I do to live a healthier life emotionally as a male or as a female, whatever it may be. Be truthful to yourself. Be vulnerable with yourself. All right. And be open to other ideas, to other people. You never know what you'll like. You'll never know until you try. Thank you. And as always, keep the fire burning.